talk is titled Using Remix to Ship Faster, Build Ambitiously, and Deliver Great User Experiences. Currently, I'm a senior software engineer at LinkedIn in the San Francisco Bay Area. So, a bit about me, Clifford Fajardo. I work on a team called Software Defined Infrastructure at LinkedIn, and I primarily work on front end web applications for visualizing our infrastructure, taking action on it. A few years ago, I wasn't so close to the infrastructure side. I worked mostly on flagship apps, very close to the core user experiences of whatever company I was working at. Fun facts about me: I have a twin brother, so I often get confused for him a lot. That little flag there that you see there, the emoji, that's from Nicaragua in Central America. I know that there's folks coming from different places from around here, Chile, and a bunch of other cool places. Uh, and yeah, from the Bay Area. And let's see. So, quick overview of LinkedIn. I'm sure people are very familiar with it. So, currently, we have about 930 million members, about 200 countries. It's being used by people in over 200 countries, and our mission is to create economic opportunity for everyone in the global workforce. So, before I dive into the topic, I kind of want to send or give context on what my day to day looks like, and then because I know everybody works, we're different companies, you might work in a similar environment as me, and you might have never considered Remix because you thought, okay, maybe, I'm not doing that thing, or I'm not part of this team, or what have you. So I work on internal tools and products, focus on infrastructure. The type of environment that I work in is kind of feels like a startup. It's all engineering led. There's no like PMs. There's no designers. It's wearing multiple hats, ship fast, doing a lot of data visualization. We do API design and UI and UX. That's like a lot of different roles. And fortunately, you'll see how Remix just helps us out a lot with our endeavors. So I work with network engineers, storage engineers, SREs, site reliability engineers, and yeah, that's a bit of the day-to-day. So this quick image is just to show you kind of what I spend a lot of my time on. So we're building at LinkedIn for our infrastructure a kind of like a hub to house a lot of infrastructure apps. So this thing catalog is growing and growing, and we're building lots of complex features, and that's that. So quick overview, I'm gonna share how we're using Remix at LinkedIn to build internal tools and products, our journey of adopting Remix and why, some challenges Remix is solving for us, and if you've been on the edge about Remix, I know there's lots of different technologies. My point is not to convince you of a particular technology. I just want to pique your curiosity. So I want to talk about the challenges we had with our previous stack before Remix. So we were dealing with developer productivity issues, like we wanted to ship faster. We wanted more performant, out-of-the-box experiences. So when I joined this team, I was one of the first UI engineers leading this new catalog or portfolio of products. And we're building a lot of custom web UI. And I felt at the time that we had some decent tools, but I felt like there's other tools that I needed to explore and look into to help us ship faster. One of the big things is we wanted to use the same language for the front end and back end. That was huge. We wanted to eliminate context switching between the UI code and the front end server code. So before we were using Python. It really doesn't matter what you use if you're using Java, Golang, like the same pain points would have still appeared for us regardless of the if the backing was Python, Java, Go, whatever it was. We wanted to spend less time to develop complex features. Again, just like maybe 2 UI engineers at the time, and we had ambitious goals. And I wanted a technology that would empower UI engineers to be more full stack, so enable folks working on UIs to move to the back end very quickly, seamlessly, go, add caches, use, all these other great server-side technologies that exist. But like I mentioned, when you're using different languages and you're time constrained, it's sometimes difficult to context switch. Regarding the performance side, we didn't have like modern SSR streaming capabilities with our existing server at the time. And again, whatever language you're using that's not JavaScript is just a bit more complicated to do all of these things. And I put modern SSR because you could technically SSR with any language, like you can spit out a template, but is the experience and the that you're producing great for the user and great for the developer? I put down there like on that sub bullet point, like you typically need like a sidecar process, meaning like let's say I have a Java server and then it talks to some node process that got spawned by the Java server, and you're doing all this communication, and I wasn't really looking forward to that, doing anything like that. And then we lacked in our previous stack, which was a client-side rendered React application, out-of-the-box performance optimization. So code splitting of assets, prefetching, nested routing, all of that stuff. You could do like code splitting. You can do that in client-side rendered React apps, but it's still like a manual process. Whereas like with Remix and these newer frameworks, if you've used them, you know that you don't have to think about that stuff. It's just there, just a route that and it spits out the right stuff. And this is how I like to explain Remix to people who don't know too much about it. It's a JavaScript server, and I put asterisk there because you can run this in Node, Deno. There's different run times, but at its core, I like to think of it as just a JavaScript server that serves your React web applications. In the future, you'd be able to serve other types of apps, like Vue or Solid. I think the team has talked about supporting those things. But the key thing that I like to let people know, remind people, is that it's a Node or a JavaScript server that's optimized for building web experiences. Because you could choose, like I said, all these other technologies, Python, Go, Java, whatever, Rust, but is it optimized for building the best web experiences? And I felt that those other alternatives weren't the best choice for that. And sure, they're fast and but the nice thing about Remix is because it's optimized for building web experiences, it understands the structure of your web application, the route, the hierarchy, when to fetch and do things at the right time, eliminate those waterfalls if you guys have visited the homepage, the network waterfalls. So getting into like evaluating Remix, like how did I arrive to Remix? Because there's so many different options that exist nowadays in the JavaScript ecosystem. So, but before I do that, quick thought experiment. I want you all to think about for a few seconds the difference between malleable and flexible. So I'm just gonna let you guys think about that for a few seconds. Okay. So I'm gonna define the terms quickly and then show you guys where I'm going with this. So flexible, it's capable of being bended easily without breaking. So here's like a paper, you can bend it. It's flexible. You can modify the shape. It adapts to different conditions or circumstances. But the way I like to think about malleable is that it's like a superset of flexible, where something that's malleable could also be flexible. But I think it also has other properties that set it apart from being flexible. So it can be changed, like I said. You can see here that one of the properties, it's flexible, it's adaptable, but the interesting thing for me is that it can be shaped and molded, and you can apply pressure to it. It can be hammered. Like, I think it has more properties to it. And that's how I was kind of thinking about the software that I wanted to use next. After our existing stack, I was thinking, okay, what's going to allow us to, be flexible, malleable? Like, I don't know what the future holds, and I want to make sure we're starting off on a good step. So, flexible and malleable. So, some observations that I saw with Remix is that I think it's quite customizable under the hood. Uh, so, if you didn't know, you could actually customize the underlying server framework. So, you could use Express, you can use Fastify, you can swap out or use your own implementation. So, I think that's nice that you have that capability because, as you know, these frameworks they have their own way of structuring things, the module system or the plugins. I liked how Remix you can ship it to different deploy targets. So you could put it on AWS, containers on Azure. You can put it on a DigitalOcean box, typical long-running server. And again, thinking about the future, at LinkedIn, we're moving fast and things are changing. I was thinking, okay, like I like that it has these properties and pretty much almost don't have to change your application code to take advantage of this stuff. It's multi-use case, and I'll explain a bit about that. So when you have a Remix app, the way I like to explain it to people is if you've experienced the joy of Create React app and how it just lets you spin up a quick React app very easily, Remix has those properties as well. You can spin up a full stack application. The node server is there. The front end works. Let's see. Lost my place. Yeah, so the joy of the Create React app and these fast experiences, like you don't lose any of that with Remix. It actually felt when I was using Remix, I almost felt like there was no transition, and that felt nice. Coming from Create React app. So your app it gets server side rendered, but it can run in single page application mode. And I think this is important to call out because some people might be building apps or companies, and it might need a public facing version of the application. So you might need to serve your pages to, Googlebot, search, these things that get shown on search engine result pages. Where Last year, there's actually a talk about how a team migrated from whatever stack they had to Remix, and they were able to eliminate a lot of infrastructure that was solely for like server-side rendering. Like this framework can do both. It can do it's good for SEO. It's good for internal apps, and I really like that flexibility. The streaming capabilities, HTTP streaming, I really haven't seen too many other implementations of HTTP streaming like done so nicely, so well, and it's so easy to adopt. It's just a keyword in Remix. It works with no JavaScript, so you can load your app and users can start interacting with it if you set up the app the right way. And another thing was when I was thinking about Remix is how does it integrate, because it's like a full stack framework. I was thinking, okay, will I be able to use my existing tools like MSW, Playwright, Chrome DevTools, StackBlitz, Code Sandbox? How incrementally adoptable is it? So those are all observations and considerations. So I think it's important for me to call this out that Remix is built on React Router, which almost gets 10 million downloads a month times 12. It's in the hundreds of millions per year. Like tons of React apps are using this, and I call this out because I mentioned incrementally adoptable, and when you'll see later in this talk when I talk about incrementally adoptable, how just this alone made our transition to Remix very, very seamless. Like when I found out that I could just copy and paste for the most part my folders of my Create React app application into my Remix app, I was just like mind blown. I was very excited. So this is the React Router docs on the left side. You see all these hooks. So all the hooks and everything you're pretty much familiar with React Router, you can still reuse that knowledge in your React app. We were using React Router in our client-side rendered React app, so when I saw that we didn't have to adopt a new router, learn new APIs necessarily, and that it was pretty much plug and play from just out of the box, I was very ecstatic. It also helped me sell this to my team and manager, like, hey, like, this is we're gonna be able to move faster and migrate to this faster. Um, Before Remix, when we didn't have using Remix and even just like Node on the back end front end server, uh, I always had these compromises or thoughts that I had to make in my mind, like should I put this in the web UI code or do I want to put this on the back end that's written in a different language? Like there's time constraints. Sometimes I would think to myself like, man, this feature, it's gonna take me like 5 hours to do if I do it on the back end because I'm not an expert in that particular programming language or its ecosystem, but I could have done it. But then I would usually resort to just doing it all in JavaScript because hey, I'm very familiar with JavaScript, and sometimes I would have to make compromises on the user experience and the speed because it just wasn't as easy to develop these features when I wasn't using something like Remix. Um, okay, so benchmarks. So I wanted to share some benchmarks of our client-side rendered React app and then moving to Remix. I may have put these out of order. Um, this is a quick demo just showing on the left side the client-side rendered React app. The right side is the Remix app. And on the right side, I'm not even taking advantage of all the Remix features. I'm just SSRing the app shell pretty much. And you'll see how significantly faster it is. Hopefully, it's pretty visible. So the right side is the Remix app, and it loads in 2.85 seconds. So this app, it has like Canvas, it has a bunch of different technologies on the page, but it loaded in 2.85 seconds. The left side is the same app, but no SSR. It's not using Remix. So I'm loading it. Hit enter. And it takes well over 8 seconds, and caches are disabled and everything. So when we migrated, like I had mentioned earlier, all I did was like copy folders. I wasn't even taking advantage of actions and loaders yet, but Remix does stuff for you out of the box that you don't think about. Like if you inspect let's see, is it on here? Trying to find the slide. So you can see the script tags and links on this page. Like it adds these module preloads and a bunch of other things that you don't have to think about setting up. So this is fetching my JavaScript early. My HTML is getting built early. Let's see. And when we did take advantage of loaders and actions, this is a slide that Ryan Florence shared in a tech talk last year, but this is what our setup looked like. We're doing a lot of client-side fetching, so the JavaScript gets parsed, a component calls the network, and that might call or load another component, and then that might call the network, so there's this like waterfall effect. With server fetching, we initiate all that on the server. Things just, aren't waterfalls anymore. Everything happens earlier. So we're definitely taking advantage of all that stuff in our current app, but definitely I think this visual is amazing. So this is some before and after of the demo. So you can see like I was running my app for the most part in SPA mode, I would call it. Just the app shell was getting SSR'd, and I was already doubling the performance, and things were a lot quicker. We could take advantage of like prefetching and things like that because Remix understands the structure of your app. We also are taking advantage of streaming, and when I mentioned earlier that Remix is one of the pieces of technologies that just makes these decisions of whether you want to change your app's architectural style, it just makes it so easy. So on the left side, you see I'm making in Remix, you use JSON to SSR a page. On the right side, you see I'm using the defer keyword. And that's all you need to do HTTP streaming. And that's been useful for us when we're calling third-party APIs. Maybe I'm doing like 20 API requests, and I don't have control over the other team or the third-party library's network latency. But just with a keyword change, I can do HTTP streaming, and things like that weren't possible when we weren't using Remix. And just to give you an idea of how the migration was for us, which we're an internal tool, I mentioned we're using Create React App, migrating to Remix. On the left side, you see the Create React App. You see we have a components folder, hooks folder, pages, services. And then on the right side, you see pretty much a similar structure. And all I pretty much needed to do was copy what I already had and then just move it into the Remix app. And I didn't change any client-side code. For the loaders, I did have to do some wiring up of the API routes, but I did that like in a day or in one sitting, just copying the code from the other framework we were using, but didn't have to change the UI code at all. And then this was really cool. So somebody from the Remix community, Sergio, created this awesome package called Remix Utils. You can see on the line 5, there's a client-only component. And that was like the magical thing that made our migration easier because we're using React Router 6.4, but we weren't taking advantage of loaders and actions yet. And when I finally got to trying to migrate things, I was like, oh my God, I didn't plan this out well. I can't believe I might not be able to do this in the timeline that I had told people. Like, what am I going to do? I don't want to rewrite everything in actions and loaders just yet. But client only saved the day. You can see on line 28 through 32, I just wrapped the page component from my old app inside of a client only, and things just worked. Like React query, everything that I had in there before, all the context and complex hooks, everything just worked. And that was our migration story for this internal app. So another thing I want to call out is we weren't the only people taking advantage of Remix. Other people at LinkedIn noticed. And we've had even teams where there's no UI engineers, purely backend, site reliability engineers, people who do not call themselves front-end engineers by any means. We had a team that adopted Remix. They needed to build their own app to service their customers. And in about a sprint, they shipped a fully functional, full-stack Remix app. And I think what awesome about Remix is that the philosophy and the structure, I feel like lends itself to being very easy to grok, and understand the code. And that was another consideration I didn't put in the other slide, but I honestly feel like if you're a backend engineer and have never done UI, you'll have a joy with Remix, and there's not too many concepts to learn, and that's another thing that made me feel more confident adopting Remix. I could potentially hand this off to a backend engineer, and I felt like they could handle it. During our migration journey, we did some HTTP load testing. I don't think this is the most important part of the talk, but what we did was we used this CLI tool called OHA. It's a Rust-based HTTP benchmarking tool. We use that just to show our stakeholders and people hey, if we move to Remix, we're going to get these performance improvements. And it's not surprising that JavaScript is a fast language. V8 gets updated every month. So for us, besides the browser stuff, just moving to Remix, which is powered by Node, was a significant win from the other dynamic language we were using. Another amazing thing that we got with Remix, which we couldn't really get with our previous tech stack, is a fast debugging story. So I'm not sure if folks are familiar with Stack Blitz or Code Sandbox, but I could spin up an entire Remix environment, the front end, the back end, in literally minutes, and there's templates. And this helps with troubleshooting so much. Like I have some of my colleagues who are on my team are here, and we run into issues, and I'm like, okay, just go create a stack blitz and go post it in the GitHub discussions or Discord. But before, it was hard to do this. Like we had a different language, different runtime, but the JavaScript ecosystem is rich, so we can take advantage of things like Stack Blitz and put these things in our PRs, debug very quickly. So just wanted to call that out. Use something like this if you haven't. It's really awesome. You can see this is on the sidebar, like really a full stack remix app, and it's seconds to create one here. It's all in the browser too. So before our tech stack looked like this, we had the browser at the bottom, our front end server, and then that front end server calls different APIs. So we're already doing back end as a front end pattern. And then the only thing that really changed with our migration story is we're using Remix, which is for us, we're using the Node runtime. So you can see like it's not a big migration or change. It doesn't require, in my opinion, re-architecting your entire stack. And then that's before and after. Some challenges that we face with Remix, we're using React Query, things like that. And I had to, as an early adopter of Remix, I had to create my own abstractions. You can see on the right side, I created something that's similar to React Query. So use Remix Fetcher, use Remix Submit. So sometimes you might need to create your own abstractions when adopting a framework, but it wasn't very complicated at all. It helped me learn Remix internals even better. So I would say, yeah, React Query, we're using that heavily. We still use it in some places. It's still a great library. Testing and mocking, because we're using the same language on the front end and back end, TypeScript, we could use MSW. If you haven't used MSW, please look at it. Please look at it. It's so awesome that we can reuse our mocks on our Node server, and also run them in the browser. It just makes testing so much easier, debugging, just mocking in general easier. Kenzie Dodds, I think he's the one that I learned this from. Phenomenal technology. You have to look at MSW, and it integrates well with Remix. And I'm showing you a picture here of this repo I created where you can download this Hello World repo, and you can see this Remix app running completely offline and using Playwright as well. Okay, before Remix, we had slower build times, context switching between different programming languages. Felt like we always had to make compromises for the web experience because we either had to do things manually, or time constraints, or things were just complex. So manual performance monitoring is kind of something we had to do, but Remix as a framework does the code splitting, module preloading. It understands nested routing and all of that stuff, so that helps with performance. After Remix, faster build times, no context switching between languages, compromising less, I would say. I feel like now we have like more options and levers to pull. I can think, now like, hey, I'm gonna move this to the server so I don't have to manage so much state on the front end. So that's like a DX win. But then I could also make trade-offs as like, if I put this on the server, everybody else who touches the web app could take advantage of this because the server is centralized. So I have lots of different options with Remix. Less state management, so I just want to call that out. It seems like a small thing, but when you have a framework like Remix that just lets you copy and paste code pretty much from the front end to the back end, it makes it almost a no-brainer to move lots of things to the back end, the front end server, and that significantly, at least for us, reduced the state management. So we don't use effect that often. Lots of the re-rendering issues and just managing client state have gone away with Remix. I like that because Remix is focused on the web platform. We've had interns who've converted to full-time, like not know anything about web development, but now they're using keywords like SSR, streaming. They're understanding servers better. They're on MDN more, which I think is awesome. And we're now spending less time on framework specifics, and I think Remix lends itself to just being a like a good technology that allows you to transfer your skill sets to other domains. Like, I don't know, you might have a Go server, because you're more focused on concepts of rather than framework specific stuff like that. Um, I just want to call out the Remix community resources because some people might be like, oh, like Remix is new. I don't know if I should adopt it. I don't know if the support is there, the community is there. Well, React Router, 10 million downloads, a week. The whole React Router community is part of Remix. Uh, there's a Remix YouTube channel, lots of great videos there, tutorials and everything. There's a Remix GitHub discussions tab. I don't know if everybody takes advantage of the discussions tab on GitHub. I think it's only been out like 2 years, but this is like an amazing resource in the Remix community. I like that the Remix community is very receptive to feedback, so people are posting proposals and RFCs, proposals, so requests for comments. And this is just an image of me sharing, like, hey, I have this idea or this challenge or pain point, and I just shared it. People commented, people were giving me suggestions. So very welcoming community, very helpful community. The Twitter, I've gotten so many of my problems and challenges solved on Twitter. If you're not using Twitter for tech and career elevation, I think it's an awesome tool. In summary is Remix is helping us ship faster due to its out-of-the-box features, debugging story, just the guardrails it has, not having to think so much about manually tuning performance because it's built into the framework and the way you think about things. It offers levers to adjust our app to different use cases. So, running our app in SPA mode, which is pretty much what we did when we initially migrated. Everything was just SPA mode, and then we incrementally started adding the loaders and actions later. We could do streaming. You could run your app in MPA mode, asterisk there. But like you can do a lot of things with Remix, and I like that we get to reuse our knowledge of the web platform and just become better web engineers in general. And I think that's it. Yeah.